makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravine. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Kristin Demoranville, a visionary leader and cybersecurity expert. She is the founder of AnzenSage, a specialized cybersecurity resilient firm, and her commitment to safeguarding the food industry. Get ready for an insightful conversation on resilience, innovation, and breaking barriers in a male-dominated field. Can you tell us about your journey in the field of cybersecurity and how you found your passion for the food sector?
Oh, that's a great starting question. I worked in IT for a very long time, and I kind of came to a crossroads if I wanted to go more into cloud or more into sysadmin or database management or something like that. I was working in end user support and more networking side, and I was asked if I want to join security, and immediately I was like, no. Because security were the type of guys that came in, guys and gals, who came in, they're like, here's a list of all these problems and, oh yeah, fix them by X date. And we're not giving you any help. Good luck. Like, blessings upon you. Goodbye. And I always was like, those guys are jerks. Like, I don't want to work with them. Like, I don't want to be them. Like, that's not me. So I had a manager at the time that pursued me to work in security 3-4 different times, offered me a job. And finally offered me an offer that had a decent salary on it. And I said, okay, fine, I'll give it a try. And it stuck. I just became kind of a little bit of a different security professional. I'm not as traditional in some ways, I guess, than others, because I don't follow necessarily the regiment of foundational security, because I think it's a lot about people and process. Because ultimately, it's technology that doesn't cause a problem in cybersecurity. It's people. It's people causing the issue. So as a woman in the industry, I see at a different lens, a different perspective. And we're really big on, you can't be secure unless you're diverse, you know? So it's not just about gender or sexual orientation, race, or anything like that. It's about seeing the world in a different perspective than others that will actually make you more secure. So I walked into security, and I was working for a bakery company at the time, baked goods manufacturer, finished goods, ingredients, things like that. Lots of smell of sugar on the air, which I call diabetes air. And I learned about operational technology and industrial control systems. And I spent a lot of time on the production floor working in the warehouses and things like that. And I just fell in love with it. I come from a long line of firefighters, so it made sense that I would fall in love with big equipment and blue collar workers and this mom and pop aunties and uncles kind of vibes, and just this love of it. So I took it around with me globally around the world as my career has continued. And I have shared religious meals in factories in Malaysia. I have had chats about monkeys eating cables of cameras in Malaysia and how people needed to deal with that. And I was like, that is a concern, security concern. Having those conversations, I actually just really seen the world. I've been really privileged and really excited to be around it. I obviously love all things manufacturing security. It's where I am. The food sector perhaps came because I started in the food sector for manufacturing. So I sort of had this natural love for it automatically. But I also started to see this real need because it is a critical infrastructure. Thank God they finally announced it. It's been deemed blessed critical infrastructure. It's the first thing a nation state's going to take down. Water and food. If you want to disrupt a nation, that's the first thing that's going to go. So I started to realize through working in different consulting firms and industry that we needed to niche down a little heavier. A lot of the firms are very generalist. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. But you're not going to go to the doctor and have the doctor tell you, okay, so clearly it's an intestinal issue. Let me just cut your stomach open and I'll fix that for you right now. You'd be like, no, I need to go to a specialist. So because of that, I was like, oh, well, we need to start creating firms that are more specialized in the sectors. We already do that for oil and gas. We already do that for automotive. Why aren't we doing that for food? And I think food's a little daunting for people because it's so emotional. It's culturally driven. It gives us a lot of identity as individuals in culture and community. So it can be complicated a little bit differently. And it's harder to break into that industry because people stay in food, specifically in manufacturing, for 40, 50 years. This is what they do. And to be able to walk in as a new person, you're like, hey, hi, I'm going to talk to you about this new stuff, this awful stuff that's happening in the world and relate it to you. Like, they're like, get out, goodbye. So having the ability to be able to talk to people and process was something I'm so glad I gained in my career. And that's what served me to get into security. So that's why I always tell people, like, you don't have to go the traditional routes. You don't have to go get a degree. If you want to get a degree, more power to you, go for it. You don't have to necessarily have certs. If you want them, great, go get them. But you can walk in through different angles. You can walk in through a marketing angle. You can walk in through behavioral psychology. Heaven's sakes, we need more of those. Please, behavioral psychology, come to cybersecurity. So
I guess it starts with the passion. It's having a passion for something. Don't get me wrong. I went to school for criminal justice, homeland security. Then I switched to psychology. I have a master in psychology. Then I went for my MBA. And right now I'm almost done with my PhD in psychology. But even with that, I always tell people, before you decided to want to go spend $200,000-$300,000 in all of this education, think about the other way, because you don't really need all that education. Because my MBA helped me a lot when it's come to the business side of but a lot of these things I can learn them in another way. Like, really, truly, you can. So now, for how long has you been in that field?
So I've been in technology for going on 25 years this year. So
ooh la la.
I started fairly young, which is good. I always say, I was one of the last generations of feral children before the internet. But when the internet did come on and technology came to me at a young age, I had a high aptitude for it. I just really liked it. I was a gamer. I still am a gamer. We can say we're gamers if you play little stupid games. I think that's okay as women for us to say that. I can say I am a gamer. I'm not hardcore like I used to, but I can game. So that culture, that community kind of fueled my geekiness and my nerding, as a friend of mine would say, nerding out. And because of that, it kind of fueled my 25-year career in a different capacity, because I had this extra excitement and energized technology vibes on one end. As long as you just have a high aptitude, you can really work in this field. That's really what you need. And curiosity. You have to be curious. Otherwise, you'll get bored really quick.
So now, what motivated you? I hope I am saying the company name properly. So what motivated you to start AnzenSage? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, AnzenSage. That's how you say it. Anzen comes from the Japanese word for secure. And sage is a play off of the herb sage, and also a wise person. It's kind of a little, cheeky.
Yeah.
So AnzenSage actually is something I've been really thinking about for a long time. Probably when I first really took over as head of security for a food company. And I realized that all the consultants that were coming in to help us really didn't know anything about the food industry or anything about manufacturing necessarily. They understood security. They were very specialized when it came to security, which is great. But because they didn't understand the industry, I started to realize that I was doing a lot more training than I needed to be when I was hiring them to do something else. Or when I was working for consulting businesses, or I was running consulting teams, I always would say, well, what industry are you good at? Or do you enjoy working for? And nobody really ever could say it, or they'd say finance or baking, which is fine. Great. If you were all about that world, I'm fine with that. But I never had anybody be like, I love oil and gas. I love manufacturing. I love transportation. I love whatever. I had professional friends that were doing all that, but I didn't have any actual people around me. So I sort of became this odd one, because I understood this and it was something that wasn't really predominant. It's interesting because security in general is a very male-driven industry. I think it's 20% is now women. I could be wrong about that percentage. Somebody will probably clock me for it. But in operational technology security and ICS security, it's even smaller. So I was definitely kind of used to being excited about things that I didn't have any peers in. Really. And then when I found women that were in it, we like grab onto each other. We like love each other hard, like sisters. So it's so interesting to me even now that I ended up in this space, because I have a degree in environmental management, which does help in that space because there's a lot of environmental processes that run behind. But I concentrated my degree on behavioral ecology and conservation. So I worked a lot with animals. I had the privilege of working with bachelor troop of gorillas at the Louisville Zoo, the polar bears that are at the Louisville Zoo, sparrows at the University of Kentucky, things like that. I don't like sparrows. Just want to put that right out for the internet. Sparrows I had to watch them fly into the nest and fly out. It was a lot. And when I see them today, I'm like, but so it's interesting that I actually learned a lot about people and process from watching patrons watch gorillas. Just gonna throw that out there, that I probably should do a TED Talk about that someday. But yeah, it's really interesting that, again, it just comes back down to behaviors and watching people and understanding how people are. And I think if you can do that, even as a professional, but I think as women, we do it automatically because we're assessing the situation. Is there danger here? Is this person going to attack me? Like, where's the exit? Do I have my keys in my hand for the car? Am I ready to fight all the time? I think you have a natural kind of like ability to work in security because you're already on this heightened sense of awareness that most people don't necessarily acknowledge, but I will.
But you know what? As long as me and you get to play video game, I'm in.
Yeah, I really do enjoy it.
So now let's talk a little bit more about the company. Can you tell us about it and what exactly, what is it all about?
Sure. Right now, AnzenSage is focused on strategy and advisory for the food industry. So that, I know that's a broad spectrum, but it's like, you should really niche that down. It actually is on my website, but that means food and beverage. That means food manufacturing. That means agriculture. That means anything from wine to beer to cannabis. Anybody has anything to do with anything you ingest, to me, that's food. So that's what I'm working on in those industries. Also, that covers supply chain. So that's transportation, the whole logistics, all that stuff. Any of that works great too. It's really interesting though, because I've been involved in some think tanks and some various other professional groups. And one of the things that's actually really interesting is that farmers are really concerned about cybersecurity.
Really?
Which is, yeah, because a lot of their equipment is run via IoT. So they have little apps on their phone and they're controlling whatever their irrigation system, drones possibly. They're monitoring the soil through little soil detection tools. They like push them into the ground and they have a little like solar panel on top of it. It sends out little signals. This tells you about erosion, moisture, whatever is out they need to track. It's really fascinating, and they're worried about being hacked. And wow. I love that. Like, that's the last person you would think that would be like concerned. You'd think it'd be the
about
actual,
that.
Yeah, about the facility. So this is about connecting dots for me and changing culture, because the food industry as a whole is such a target because of nation state attacks. And I realize people are like, oh, conspiracy. It's not. It's straight up scary. This stuff actually keeps me up at night sometimes. But it's the fact that it's such a legacy system, process-driven industry that it's exploitable. You connect anything that's not supposed to be connected to the internet or has never been connected to the internet, you get a vector automatically. I think that it was yesterday, Dole's finally announced how much they've lost and it was 10.5 million in the 3 months since their packaged lettuce was hit with ransomware. So wow. Yeah, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. It's 10.5. That's crazy. But that's the cost of fixing it. That's the cost of dealing with it. That's the cost of upgrading. That's the cost of a lot of things. But that could have been so much worse. It could have been loss of life. It could have been recalls. It could have been more brand destroying. I'm not saying that 10.5 million isn't horrible. That's awful. But I think we will see $1 billion payout in our lifetime. If not, it has already happened. Who knows? People don't share information. So AnzenSage was really started and really works with how do you bring your people and process up to speed? How do you get your legacy information to take it into your current for your digital, whatever you're doing, your digitalization, your transformation, whatever you want to call it. Everybody has a term for it. It's also about reminding yourself to stay to the fundamentals. But how do you make those fundamentals work for your business? Because we already know that most we'll just pick on factories for a second. Factories, they only care about production uptime and employee safety. If security is brought to the table, they're going to be like, get out of here. You're not affecting either or you're making it worse. So how do we work with that mentality and also help bring them up to speed so there isn't any more unnecessary attacks than need to be, if we can just mitigate the damage and the risk? And also, I'm trading a lot. So I find that there's a lot of education that runs behind it because people think security is like the hacker with the hoodie sitting in a dark corner. No, it is not. It is like the very attractive young woman sitting in a coffee shop who looks like she's probably looking at nothing, like shopping for shirts or something, who's probably the one that's actually taking down your systems. It's not the same as it was, back in the way the media portrayed it from like the movies. It's actually much more serious than that. So I think the thing that I've learned more than anything else is you have to make people care. I don't mean like make them care. It was Jacques Rousseau said it. You can only protect what you care about. Ad-libbing. And so when I go in and I train people specifically on security for their factory, their facility in whatever state, country, or region, I make it personal. So you can take this home for your family, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your friends. I said, this information is important for you to think while you're using your phone or how you connect to Wi-Fi. When you connect to Wi-Fi in a place you don't know, or are you using a VPN? Do you even know what a VPN is? Do you understand what two-factor authentication is? That annoying little pin that comes on your phone, those kind of things. Where do your passwords stored? How do you redo your password? You're just putting a 1, 2, 3 on the end and then adding a 4. I mean, how are you doing that? And I also work with executives and board members because let's be real, boards are a little archaic. They don't have a lot of cybersecurity that sits on them. They know that cybersecurity is a problem, but because they don't have anybody who can really do it or is innovative enough to realize what a digital transformation looks like, it becomes a problem because they just talk rather than do. And I've been running into that problem quite a bit lately. And it's hard because they'll be like, oh yeah, we've got somebody who understands cybersecurity. And I'm like, because they were a CFO and they had cybersecurity underneath them? Or do they actually work in food and cybersecurity? Come on, people. So it becomes a lot, quite a lot. So as working through all these different organizations, I just realized that we needed to create more of a niche consulting firm that focused on food, just like oil and gas, just like automotive, and really be that specialist. And it's just been a ride since. I mean, honestly, I started my company and then Dole got hacked like pretty much instantly. And it was kind of good, bad timing, of course. And having those conversations. I also find that I'm kind of more of an ambassador trying to layman's speak security terms and also connecting and relating people to, hey, this relates to food safety as well as food defense. And we can work together to create more of a culture of safety because we should be thinking about cybersecurity the way we think about fire safety, stop, drop, and roll. It should be just as similar to how to handle a cyber incident or a potential cyber incident as it is for fire safety. So I'm really trying to work on that with organizations and help them understand that it doesn't have to be scary or daunting. It doesn't have to be super expensive. A lot of it just comes down to is making sure your people, who are your best asset and your worst asset, work with you rather than against you. Because nobody wakes up in the morning and wants to work in a factory. They're there because they have to be there. So let's make sure that we keep them safe and we keep your product safe and the consumer safe. And we all are happy, right? That's the bottom line about it.
But now, do you work with any type of companies? Does it have to be a corporation, a small business, a farmer?
It could be anybody. It could be the local winery down the street. It could be a big company. It could be another consulting firm. It could be, I have a lot of partnerships with a lot of consulting firms. They call me in when they need me. It could be technology companies who want me to probably sell their product, but also it's to get to the client as well. It could be education purposes. It could be a lot of things. I'm kind of an advisor hat strategist is probably what my mentor would tell me to say. So that's how they hire me, basically, is that kind of like level of conversation. They're hiring my expertise and my knowledge set, but also I come with a powerhouse of networking. So if I don't know, I have someone who knows or could do it for them.
So now earlier, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned something about training. Is that something you do for your clients?
If they ask for it, yes. So if they do, I don't want to do the compliance cybersecurity awareness training. Like, please, everybody's over that anyways. What I would do is more specific for their factory, their region, their country. It would be operator cybersecurity awareness type of training. So while you're working on the factory floor, here is the 10 things you should look for that are a little bit more advanced than your average training. I have done that several times in different countries, and it's been received really well. And that creates a gamification for cybersecurity within that site, because they start policing each other, which is hysterical to me. I still love it. They actually get in each other's faces like, that's not secure. I know they're kind of like a little bit silly with it, but they really do mean it. And then the factories will compete against each other. It's incredible to watch. Because like we said, you need to make it fun, not like a game, but you need to make it fun. Otherwise people are like, well, what do I care about this? It's just one more step on the annoyance ladder that I've got to work with. The idea is to keep them motivated to be secure and do their job safely, rather than just like, oh, here's another rule. Boring. Not boring, and nor should security be boring. So that's kind of the training that I provide. Also executive level training as well, because sometimes executives are like, I don't know what this is. And that ends up being a little bit, it's higher level and more geared towards what an overall company would look like, rather than the very granular, this is how you're going to move on the line if you hit the switch at this time kind of thing. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time with the culture, and I have to spend some time with the people in various different departments. I don't just work with IT or security. I'm working with production and HR and even marketing.
So now, do you work, if you need to work with a company, do you have to go there in person, or is that something you can do remotely?
I can do both. It just depends on the appetite for the organization, whether it's small or large. If they want to fly me in, I'll go in. If they just want to do it online, I'm fine online. It's whatever they feel like. I think this day and age post-pandemic, a lot of people are really comfortable here, and that's fine. If they want to fly me in, that's great. But most of the time it's here, and that's great because I get to stay in my own house, and I get to hang out with my cat who just walked in. So
how does your company help food companies strengthening their cybersecurity postures and build resilience against potential threats?
Sure. It's a bit of a loaded question. So what it comes down to is resilience is something that's built over time. It's not something you wake up and you're like, I'm resilient. You can't exactly do that. You have to go through stuff to get there. Most of the time, companies know that there's a problem, or they've had a problem, or they feel like there could be a problem and they need to deal with it. That's when they tend to call as those things, or they've just had an assessment done, or they've passed or they passed or failed it based on compliance, and they're now like, I don't know how to work this into what we do, because it's very generic, obviously. So how do we stay secure, but we've got this list of issues, or we have this set of stuff? I don't know how to deal with that. And so that's when I get called in. I think that in itself is the beginning stages of becoming resilient, recognizing you have to do something. And then from there, it comes down to, I have to ask a lot of really candid questions. Like, do you actually know what your crown jewels are, your biggest assets? And if the answer is no, or I'm not sure, that's a problem to me. That's a flag immediately. Do you know what your key processes are inside of your manufacturing, let's say? Do you know what the most important machines are in your industry, within your whole corporation? Most of the time, nobody knows that. So this is why you kind of start at the executive level and go down, or I'll start from the bottom and go kind of like the sandwich level, because it is amazing to me that certain organizations do not realize that they actually are manufacturing companies and they need to care about it. Like 53% of the revenue comes out of their production, but yet they call themselves something else. Like we're entertainment, or we're an experience company, or that's great. Whatever. You are a manufacturing company. Your revenue is coming from that. So let's care about that. I was, to get candid for a second, I had a conversation with an executive at a food processor years ago. And she said to me, she goes, Kristin, you always are so focused on the factories. Why don't you ever care about the corporate office? And I went, and I kind of blinked, and I thought, well, it's a strange conversation. And I said, well, last time I checked, and this is verbatim, last time I checked, the factories are bringing in the profit and revenue, and the corporate office is bleeding profit. And she just looked at me like I was insane. And I just thought, wow, this conversation is very over. I think we have to roll back our mindset, especially as professionals, and start to take a look at the basics. We're talking like colors, like red, yellow, green, like we're really basic. Shapes, let's take it all the way back. Because I think we just like to add tech, and we just believe that it's secure, and it's not secure by design. It's not supposed to be. The innovators aren't thinking secure because that's not their job. The innovators are there to invent and they don't have to deal with the security part. That's for us to worry about. I think corporations believe that this is the moment we have to transform digitally, and why? Why now? Why right now? You're just going to add more attack vectors, and your culture is not ready to take it. Your culture is not here for it. If you add in all this tech, who's going to take care of it? Who understands it? Do you even have someone who's head of your security for your, what? Do you have someone who know? Yeah, and then if like these global organizations, do you have someone who understands all the global nuances? So I used to write global security policy back in the day. I'd have to go through more checks per country region, especially for GDPR and things like that, than I would like to tell you. But it taught me that when I write security controls on a base level for all of a manufacturing environment globally, I can literally only go this far. And then we got to take it into region. And then we have to take it into country. And then we have to take it into county or whatever sections. It's really that daunting. That is the part that actually excites me, because I'm like, okay, how can we connect and relate? Who does things similar? And who can we get people to talk to? So when I go to an organization, my biggest thing is I need you all to talk to each other. We need to remove shame. We need to mitigate it. You know what? Bad stuff's going to happen. That's fine. We're here. But you know what? At the end of the day, we still care about the two things: production and employee safety. That's it. So if we completely relate everything back to that over and over again, if it doesn't serve those two things, we're not doing things right for this organization. We're not helping our anybody who wants to invest in us, shareholders, consumers, the brand. None of that. Those are the two things that matter. And I think when you start to refocus that and start getting people to talk to each other, and that's always the hard part, because nobody wants to admit, number one, that they're wrong, number two, that there's a problem, or number three, that they don't know what to do. Like, those are the three things. So I've always said this, the security is about mitigating shame. It's not about mitigating a problem. It's about mitigating shame. So as long as you come to it in that sense of, I don't care what happened. I care what happened, but I don't care why it happened. Like, it happened. So let's move through this together. I think I've gotten better results that way than if I just walked in and I was like, all right, who was the idiot who flipped the switch? And I've seen security professionals go in and do that. And it's 100% brick wall all the way up to the sky. You can't even get around it, under it, over it, any of that. And I've got to spend extra time trying to have those discussions on the backside at lunch or something like that to try to get people to come back together at the table. We never share information when security incidents happen. Even now, We still don't even know what the largest payout of ransomware ever was because we can't disclose it because it would hurt a brand, which I totally get. But how can we prepare or deal with it if we're not talking even on internal level? Because everybody's sworn to secrecy over it. Okay? That's just not going to work.
It seems like cybersecurity is similar to business owners that doesn't want to deal with the IRS.
Sure. I guess I've never heard that. I've never heard that connection drawn, but okay. It's not shady, I guess. It's just, I suppose the IRS would be a little shady. That whole thing is kind of odd. But no, I mean, it's just people just don't want to talk because, like I said, they'd have to admit that something happened or they'd have to take responsibility for something. Not necessarily take responsibility, but you're the messenger, so you die first. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to make it, when I work with these companies, I'm trying to make the culture for security and safety one of proactiveness rather than reactiveness. You still need to be reactive, obviously, when something happens.
Yes.
But it's more of bringing people to the table ahead of time, helping them realize that you don't have to be afraid, that if you speak up quicker, more than likely something will happen. It's kind of like early diagnosing cancer. Go get screened, right? So if you don't put your hand up and say something hurts, and then 5 years later, you've got this mass. Yeah. Okay. Like same concept, just different.
Just different. So now, what is your vision for the company in the coming years? Are there any new areas of focus that you are particularly excited about?
So obviously right now the company focuses on the broad. I feel like eventually I'll niche down into like smaller aspects. Like I might break off cannabis at one point and let it have its own moment. I might break off wine and fine food on that side. I might break off retail or food and beverage. It could eventually split down that level. But for now, I don't want to niche because then it would just get crazy. I'd have to manage a bunch of little micro companies as well. And that would just, it's enough. I already am managing 3 companies, so this is fine. And I really love that idea, but I really could break out a whole culture training, I guess, aspect if I wanted to. I have friends that do corporate culture already. I could partner with them. There could be some kind of blend there. There could be more technology. I could focus on technology. I've got some ideas for that, and I work with other companies as well. So there are ways I could see this splitting up, but I feel like the future is going to kind of unfold for me with that. I'm open to it all, but at the same time, I'm fine where I'm at the moment. I can't imagine doing anything else at the second.
So what advice would you give to food companies that are just starting to address cybersecurity concern within their organizations?
Sure. Let's start with a smaller company. That's probably easier to discuss this in, just for context for everyone. So say you are a company that's starting to do prepared foods in those kiosks, kind of like what you see in the airport. Those are becoming incredibly popular now, which is good. We're finally realizing that Japan was already ahead of us on that, so we need to do it everywhere else. That's fine. And
wow.
Yeah, it's true though, because Japan, you could just get anything out of a vending machine and it's epic. It's wonderful. So, or, egg vendors and places and things like that. Anyways, this whole thing is a new movement. It's not new. It's just becoming better. So you think about it, that's cold storage, logistics, the food that has to be made, and all the other back house things that need to be done with it. There's a lot that could go wrong, right? Between the transportation of the machine broke down, those kind of things. Is there an alerting system? Clearly it's connected by IoT and on the internet. What happens if the internet goes out? What if there's a power break? How does that all work out? Do you have a way of disaster recovery? Do you have a business continuity plan? Those things right there alone, especially for a small business, are so key to get done and down. And they can be edited. They're not in stone. It's not like this is like the Old Testament right here. Like it's not going to change. You can completely edit it. It is very organic and it's growing and evolving all the time. Because of that, I find that that's one of the first things I have to discuss is here's all the things that could possibly go wrong. Let's put some statements together and a plan of how we're going to mitigate that, like 1 through 10. Seriously, as easy as that. And then we'll start tackling other things like what's your employee culture look like? Do you inherently, are you secure? Are people agreeable to security tools? Are they agreeable to two-factor authentication? How do they feel about training? How do they feel about all these other things? Do you have any concerns about your employees, letting other people in the building that shouldn't be there? Have you vetted your third parties, your janitors, your IT? Have you talked to them? Do you know do they have security riders? Did you even have a security rider? Do you even know what that is? You know what I'm talking about? Those kind of things. So it's kind of building out the posture, but building on the little bit that was already there. Because most of the time when people are in these smaller business situations to medium, they haven't exactly leapt into a full-blown security program. Which I like working with that group a lot because you can be innovative. Like you can try new things and they're open to it and it's fun. The corporations that are larger and global, obviously they have sustained security teams for decades now. Oh, I hope. And they're a little bit more rigid. And obviously they're adhering to different global rulings from, EU or anywhere in Asia and things like that. So it's a little bit more of a nuanced situation where you have to work in a larger capacity. And most of the time you're going in and you're just kind of making tweaks and you're saying like, hey, I realize that you're just a security person that works in a food company and you haven't been the food person working in a food company as a security person. Like I get that. So let's have those kind of conversations. I've gone in and trained security operations centers, what to look for if they see an alert. Because usually in a factory setting or any kind of food production or production in general, even on an industrial side of the house, every alert isn't necessarily an issue with security. It's a little bit more of recognizing that you need a little more salt or a little more pepper while you're cooking, even though you've gone over the allotted recipe amount. You just kind of have to pay attention. This is why I don't like baking, because I'm not about that measurement life. I'm much more about like, all right, here you go. Here's a little extra salt, a little extra pepper. So it's just kind of those elements that I like working with, and mitigating. But creating that resiliency comes down to the culture. You have to just embed it into the culture. You have to have those difficult conversations with your leadership team to find out what kind of company you want to have. Do you want a company that tells its customers that we are secure and we care about your food? Or are you going to be that type of customer that's going to have a huge marketing team because now you're going to deal with outbreaks and recalls and all this other stuff? You can only slap that Band-Aid on so much before it's going to become, inevitable. You don't want to have your company downsized and sold off and things like that. I mean, unless that's where your ultimate goal is, I don't know. But most of the time the brand is so protected that they forget about the two important things, production and employee safety. And then the third, of course, is obviously will always stand as a consumer safety. But it goes part and part without saying it usually.
But do you think that every companies need a cybersecurity person in working for them?
Not necessarily. I think that with the great advances we've made in automation, and also you can retain people, such as myself, I think that allows you to free up so you don't have to have somebody full time. Like if you had a consultant on retainer for, I don't know, X amount of hours a year or a quarter, that would be significantly less expensive than having a full-time person. Because then you'd have to have, hold insurance and bonuses and all the other fun things that companies deal with. And I think a lot of the times that you can also have, if you have one IT person, you can kind of help them be a double agent almost in a way, if they want to. I'm not pressuring IT people at all. Some of them literally cannot stand us, and I understand. But that is also a way to kind of help. Again, it comes back to culture, though. If you have a really strong security awareness, security safety culture, you won't have to necessarily invest as much as you would think, because it all comes back down to people and process. And because technology doesn't cause the problem, of course, now everybody will say AI is causing the problem. People are still coding that AI. It's still people.
Someone behind it.
Yes, it's still people. So because of that, people are your biggest asset. They really are. And if companies realize that they could lean on their people more, I think it would help too with people enjoying their job more, as well. Because you have vested interest in it. What I do is going to affect, I think we have such a disconnect from our jobs these days, in that regard, at least in the corporate experience, where you feel that you're not getting enough from your employer and your employer's not getting enough from you. But if you start investing more into why it matters and why you work, not just for the money, but, if you're in food, people work in food because they love to work in food. They really do, because it's culturally significant. It's emotional. It gives us nostalgic memories. I mean, the smell of lutefisk to this day is disgusting, but it makes me think of my Swedish grandfather, and that kind of thing. Like, it brings up memories. So I think people who work in food are especially tuned into that emotional intelligence a little bit differently, I think, than the rest of the world is. This is my opinion, but it's true.
I don't work on food, but I do love eating it. So I guess I have a love for food.
Well, we need it, right? It's something we need. We don't necessarily need, I don't know. I can't think of anything else. Like this lamp behind me, I could always light a candle,
You can live without it, but food, that's something we actually need to survive. But also that I think one time my little sister said to me that people should enjoy eating the food, because if you enjoy eating it, you will realize how everything that they put, you can taste them, you can smell them, and we have to enjoy it just like you enjoy drinking a glass of wine. So also that brought me to how can someone reach out to you, and how does the process of working with you, how does that work?
Sure. They can reach out to me over email, through LinkedIn, my website, any of those ways. There's phone numbers. There's 50 ways. You could send a carrier pigeon if you want. But yeah, no, honestly, usually most people connect with me through LinkedIn. A lot of people will have my email through my website. That's how I usually start those conversations. But a lot of the time, it's through just networking. People are like, oh, hey, I want you to meet this person and this person. You guys are going to be great. Yeah, go. And then just let me do it. I have had some absolutely amazing moments because of that. Networking is so powerful, and you should never discount it ever. It has brought me to some really amazing places in the world, but also some really amazing people that even to this day I call up when I have a problem. So definitely that. You just made me think of something when you said about wine. Part of I'm an avid wine drinker, adore wine. And I don't I adore it, not just for the reason of, the taste and the food pairing and all that stuff. I actually really love it because each bottle of wine tells a story. It's a story of the weather, the soil, the people. I love it because you're never going to have that same vintage exact bottle ever again, unless of course you buy a case of the same exact bottle. But that year, that moment in time is frozen in that bottle, essentially. And I really take a lot of pride and passion when I have wine, and feel for the people who spent their time, their blood, sweat, and tears to create this drink that I'm enjoying with whatever meal I'm having. Even if I'm having pizza or a burger or popcorn, it doesn't matter. I always think about how the people who spent the time in the soil crying when they knew their crop was too wet and it wasn't dry enough, or the people who were just trying to make it and their vineyard finally took off and that kind of thing. I adore that. So for me, I really love working with the vineyards because for me, that's lovely. And I can kind of give back in a way, even though obviously I'm being paid to be there. But I just love that story that it tells. And that's how we should feel when we think about eating too. Like,
yes,
what went into the soil, what little, what happened like this, and the weather and the ecosystem and things like that. That's why wine can taste different between California and South Africa to, France to even England. It's all different because of that.
It's all different. Yes, I agree. So you have a very long experience in cybersecurity, and I know also you're opening a new business for the pigeon carrier. Our next interview will be done by the pigeons. They'll send the information. I'll send you the next information. That's how it's going to be done. But What do you see as some for you start your own company? I'm sure that you have a long-term goals for that. But do you see that the cybersecurity, will that change? Will more women get into that field? How do you see that field evolve in the next, let's say, 5 years?
I think we're going to see more boutique consulting firms pop up like mine in the next 5 years. I think that the ways of working in cybersecurity are going to vastly change in terms of it's going to be more integration with privacy and more integration with automation and tools. And I know that's kind of a daunting conversation in itself, but there's plenty of security tools out there. But I think that automation bit that, like you said, just how would a small business use it? Would they need a full-time person? Not necessarily if they have these automated tools that run. I don't think that's a one-stop security shop. However, I do think that that's something we're going to see a little bit more of, especially when it comes to passing compliance. Do I think that we'll see more diversity in security? I hope so. I really do. But I also know that we're tired. Us older generation is tired. The new generation that's coming up is excitable and here and fuels us for sure. But I still see a long way to go. And that's the hard part about it. I do think that it's going to be really interesting as we phase out the first generation of really working in cybersecurity out of the industry in the next 5 to 10 years, because they're going to retire if they haven't already. So it's going to be really interesting watching the academically learned cybersecurity younger generation come through, because they went to school for this. They have all their certifications. They've done all this stuff, but they don't have the experience as the older end. So like, how do we fit that together? It's going to be really interesting. And I really hope the people who are going for education or spending time right now or interning stay, because I know a lot of them come in and they're like, oh yeah, cybersecurity, I'm going to do this. And, you can make some money and all these things, but then they burn out and they haven't even been there for more than a couple of years. How do we retain, I guess, is the question. So it'd be interesting to see how that's going to go. But I do think we're going to see more little small firms, boutique firms like mine starting up in various different industries. And it'll be specific even in, it'll be more specific too on the technical side as well. Which will be interesting because people still need pen testing. They still need ethical hackers. They still need that kind of stuff. But I think we're going to see more of stuff as a service.
Well, thank you so much, Kristin, for taking the time. I don't know why I call you that. I'm so used to just say Kristin automatically when you see the Chris, but it's Kristin. So Thank you so much. I love it. Your mom make it different. It's like, I'm not going to put the E on there. I'm just going to remove that. But thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. And I do look forward to having that Pigeon Courier talk with you. So that's going to be fun. I wonder if we can play the video game as well that way. Maybe that would be good.
There's plenty of like little games you can play. There's, I forget the name of it. It will come to me later when we're not talking, but it's what I used to play with my team, especially as a stress breaker. You could be like these little eggs that run around on a little course and you shoot little like guns at each other. You look like you're shooting like yolk at each other and you shoot at each other. So it's like this whole little game. But when somebody finally hits you, you blow up like a yolk, like an egg exploded, and it makes this little chicken noise and it just cracks everybody up. And then everybody's in it because they're like, who's this user who just got me? I'm going after you. And it just becomes this really fun thing. So yeah, I'm 100% a believer in gaming with people, especially when it comes to that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. When it comes to cybersecurity, I don't think that's a conversation we have a lot. That's something we just like financing. We like to not talking about it. Let's just not talk about it. And I think cybersecurity is in the same kind of area. Let's just forget about it. Let's hide it. Let's pretend it never happens and everybody can move on with their life. But like you said before, in reality, we do need to talk about it because that's the only way we are going to fix the problem in the first place. And if we are hiding it from others, then how do we learn? We don't. We just keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So I think that your focus and with your company, it's required. We need it.
Thanks. I think so too.
Thank you listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on womel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.